Edu- Education is important. I mean, to say that is like, why do you even have to say it? It can lift an entire family and the generations that come after out of poverty. And it gives the children, the grandchildren, everyone else more opportunity than they would otherwise have. And on both sides of the dais, we are interested in how do the American people achieve the American dream. And education is the power to do that. But not every child has an equal opportunity for quality education, which is to say, the status quo isn't working for everyone. We need something a little bit different. As testimony, the scores from the 2024 National Assessment of Economic Education Progress, NAEP, were the lowest we've seen in 30 years. Only 1/3 of high school seniors at a proficient reading level. Nearly 60% of employers say that high school graduates are not job ready. Now, some of my colleagues will say we just need to throw more money at it. And you know, we tried that. It actually didn't work. And so during COVID, billions, literally billions were given to school systems, and yet these scores stayed low. The idea that this is solely a resource issue defies experience. Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes? Our eyes tell us it didn't work. School choice is the avenue for expressing the innovation that we need to meet a student's need. Now, education is not one size fits all. The status quo overlooks students who fit differently. And so there is a demand for innovative approaches to teaching children with specific and sometimes complex needs. And some public charter schools, some charter and private schools, other private schools, parochial schools are doing this. And full disclosure, my wife, Dr. Laura Cassidy, has a public charter school designed to serve children with dyslexia. And the curriculum provides early and necessary interventions to support the students struggling to read. Students who in a traditional school just can't comprehend, but they're bright. And if you speak to them as they need to be spoken to, if you will, teach them as they need to be taught to learn, they will achieve their fullest potential. That should be our goal with every child, but that takes innovation. Other schools like Ohio's Oakmont Centers and the Sale Future Academy, I wish I had been a teenager at the Sale Future Academy, specialize in meeting at-risk students where they are to improve their academic achievement. I'm also impressed with the St. George Municipal School Unit in St. George, Maine, providing hands-on learning in trades that supports the local economy, such as boat building, woodworking, metalwork, and technology, other aspects of technology used in that. You can imagine that those employers say that the high school graduate is job ready because it's innovation. So these types of schools with more tailored education should be accessible to all. And school choice does that. It puts the parent in charge of the child's education, allowing them to choose the educational pathway, the innovation that best meets their child's needs. By the way, I went to a traditional public high school all the way down, and it worked well. My son went to an inner city public high school, and it has worked extremely well. The traditional schools work for many students. What we're asking, though, is to give the parent the choice if it does not. So if the child's struggling, and if there's a teacher there, and she's got this great idea, some innovative idea that can meet that struggling child's needs, then we should empower her to go out and start that school that meets that niche for those types of students. Now, sometimes when you begin to speak of this, we just break into kind of no, yes, no, yes. But let's just point out the positive impact school choice has on public schools. When you empower parents with choice, they choose the educational system that's best for them. But that prompts lower performing schools to improve, and healthy competition drives results. It is a win-win, and that has been demonstrated in school systems. Now, our children deserve the best chance at success. I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent. I want my grandson to have the best opportunity to achieve his potential. But everyone could say that of their children and grandchildren. I'm proud to say that provisions from my Educational Choice for Children's Act, included in President Trump's historic working families tax cuts, further enables parents to supplement their child's education. And if they're in a failing school, to be able to choose a school which succeeds for that child, or to get some after-school tutoring if that's what they need to increase their opportunities. And by the way, this isn't partisan, at least not among the people. The American people want school choice. It is supported by nearly 3/4 of K through 12 parents. Republicans overwhelmingly support. More than half of self-identified Democrats support as well. So it's not about public school versus private, not about teachers versus parents, not about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about giving a parent access to that innovative educational program best for her child, so that her child can maximize her talents or his talents and achieve their dreams. With that, I recognize Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I think you began your remarks by saying that it's almost self-evident that education is important. And you're right, of course it is. And yet let's back up and understand that not only is education is important, that the children of this country, the future of our nation, are also important. And we have to take a deep breath and ask why in the richest country in the history of the world, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth. Millions of kids are struggling to get the nutrition, basic nutrition they need. We have to ask ourselves why in the richest country on earth, our child care system is completely broken and dysfunctional. And while millions of people are leaving school, if they're able to go to college, deeply in debt. Does that sound like a nation that believes in its kids and actually believes in the importance of education? If we believe in the importance of education, why are we paying teachers, in some cases, $35,000, $40,000 a year? Do you think you're going to attract the best and the brightest? We're going to get really excited. I want to teach kids. Oh, you're paying me $40,000 and I'm graduating college, $50,000 in debt? Really? Does that suggest that this nation really prizes and cherishes the importance of education? I think not. More to the point in terms of this hearing, it goes without saying, and I think the chairman made the point. There was once a time, let's not forget it, when the United States was the best educated country on earth. We led the world in the percentage of adults with college degrees, okay? Best educated. We are no longer number one. Today we are in 11th place. Countries all over the world, poorer countries than us, doing a lot better job in understanding that their kids need a great education. And one of the reasons for that is that our students are woefully unprepared for higher education. Today, the U.S. ranks 28th out of 37 developed countries in math, 12th in science, and 6th in reading. Now, there are a number of reasons, number of things we can and should be doing to strengthen and improve education in our nation. I think there is widespread agreement on that. But let me tell you something I believe we should not be doing. We should not be creating a two-tier education system in America. Private schools for the wealthy and well-connected, and severely underfunded and under-resourced public schools for low-income, disabled, and working-class kids. Unfortunately, that is precisely what the Trump administration and my Republican colleagues in Congress are doing. Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill included a provision that provides an estimated $51 billion a year, that's a lot of money, to expand private school vouchers in America, more than the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Title I combined. That same bill, as we all recall, gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% at a time of massive income and wealth inequality. Let me be very clear. We should not be taking money out of our nation's public schools in order to give a massive tax break to billionaires. We should not be taking money from public schools and giving it to private schools that get to pick and choose which students to teach. Private schools that reject students because they have a disability. Private schools that reject students because of their religion. private schools that reject students based on the income of their families. Mr. Chairman, it costs an average of $11,600 for a middle schooler to attend a private school in America, and that is the average. In many private schools, tuition is $30,000, $50,000, or even more a year. Meanwhile, the average private school voucher is just $4,100. So you tell me, how is a working-class family making $45,000, $50,000 a year going to come up with the extra $7,500 or $28,000 they need to send their kid to a private school? Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires and moving to privatize our public schools, we should be doing exactly the opposite. And that's not just what Bernie Sanders believes. It happens to be the view of the American people in state after state. Since 1967, there have been 18 state ballot initiatives to create private school vouchers, 18. And voters have rejected every single one, including 65% of voters in Kentucky and 57% of voters in Nebraska in 2024. Today, I released a committee report on the consequences of state voucher programs run by private entities. It finds that on average, vouchers only cover 39% of private school tuition. It finds that nearly half of private schools that accept vouchers deny admission to students with disabilities or limit how many students with disabilities they serve. And it finds that 17% of religious schools charge families extra tuition based on their religious beliefs, among many other things. In other words, in voucher programs, the real quote-unquote choice belongs to private schools, not working-class families. And incredibly, Mr. Chairman, even as student achievement declines, private schools do not have to show results to parents or the public. They do not have to report test scores. Few voucher programs even require teachers to be credentialed. Studies of private school vouchers in Louisiana, Indiana, Ohio, and Washington, D.C. show that students using vouchers perform worse academically, not better. That is unacceptable. Bottom line, in my view, we should be strengthening and expanding public education, the foundation of American democracy, where Black and white and Latino, rich and poor kids come together in one room, and not privatizing public education. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I will point out that the Education Choice for Children's Act did not take money away from public schools. So just to make sure that's clear. Now I think John Husted, Senator Husted, will introduce his witness.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the opportunity and the honor to join all of you in celebrating National School Choice Week. It is my honor, though, to introduce a fellow Ohioan and a witness, and someone I've known for a while in working on education policy in Ohio, Cris Gulacy-Worrel. And she is a first-generation Cuban-American with an incredible story to share on the role of education and school choice, specifically the role it played in her life. Ms. Gulacy-Worrel is a graduate of Columbus State University, or a college, I should say, and Malone University in Ohio before later getting her master's degree from Northwestern. Ms. Gulacy-Worrel is has dedicated her professional life to improving alternative education options for Ohioans, including time at the Ohio Department of Education. And most recently, she served as the vice president and part of the founding team for Oakmont Education, a nationally recognized network of dropout recovery public charter schools serving over 5,500 non-traditional learners across Ohio, Iowa, and Michigan. And I have visited one of her schools in Cleveland, maybe others, but I most recently visited the one in Cleveland. Oakmont provides a comprehensive academic model with an individualized, self-paced program that is responsive to each student's needs. Oakmont offers 15 different industrial credentials, including skilled trades, community health and wellness, and business and entrepreneurship. This training focuses on providing real-world experience for in-demand jobs in essential fields. This training empowers graduates to earn a sustainable living wage in high-demand careers without college debt. Thank you, Cris, for joining us today, and I will just tell you that she genuinely cares about the future of our children and particularly those who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Chairman Cassidy, Ranking Member Sanders, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank Senator Husted for the introduction and for being a tireless champion of school choice, first in Ohio and now on the national stage. I'd also like to thank Jeannie Allen for her guidance and support through this process. My name is Cris Gulacy-Worrel. I'm a founding member and vice president of Oakmont Education. My mother fled communist Cuba with nothing but the clothes on her back, and my father spent his career as an electrician at General Motors. They taught me that in America, where you start doesn't have to be where you end. But my path wasn't linear. As a teenager, I struggled, and I learned firsthand what happens when systems fail the young people that they are supposed to serve. I know what it feels like to be overlooked, underestimated, and failed. And that is exactly why I do this work. At Oakmont Education, we serve over 5,500 students across Ohio, Iowa, and Michigan, young people who are over age, undercredited, and written off. Through our career technical education model, students earn industry-recognized credentials and engage in work-based learning that connects them directly to employers in their community. Last year, we graduated 1,309 students, and we've placed over 4,500 young people directly into the workforce over the last 3 years alone. But Oakmont doesn't exist in isolation. We are part of an education landscape that is rewriting what's possible for students and families across this country. And that's what I'm here to talk about, what school choice really is. For far too long, we've been told school choice is about ESAs or public charter schools. It's not. What we're really talking about is educational plurality, a system with room for many models and many pathways to success. Schools, yes, but also EdTech platform, workforce partners, microschools, and advocacy organizations fighting for families ignored for too long. This space is far more diverse than most people realize, and it's growing every day. As a Center for Ed Reform Fellow and Yas Prize awardee, I had the privilege of seeing this national landscape up close, meeting founders, visiting schools, and watching students transform. When states empower people and organizations to meet kids where they are, everyone wins. The innovative leaders in this space are sector agnostic and student-centered. They don't ask what type of school a child needs, they ask what the child needs, and they build it. Look at Sail Future in Florida, putting foster youth on international sailing expeditions while they earn diplomas, Coast Guard credentials, and something much harder to measure, hope. There's Arizona Autism Charter Schools, proving neurodiverse learners don't just cope, but thrive when someone builds a school designed for them. Chesterton Schools Network is a network of 70 Catholic high schools across the country that are affordable, parent-led, and offering families an option that simply didn't even exist 15 years ago. In the Rural Schools Innovation Zone, 5 Texas public districts came together to share career academies so rural students have the same access to opportunity as kids in Houston or Dallas. And finally, Stimuli Studios, who use AI-powered gaming to connect students to career pathways and beyond. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. I'm also honored to serve as the board chair of Freedom to Choose Schools, a Black and Brown-led advocacy organization co-founded by Dr. Howard Fuller and Dr. Steve Perry. We support families navigating their options and stand with the people building what they know their communities need. Because at the end of the day, it's not about which schools families choose, it's about having the option to choose at all. What ties all of us together across sectors, across states, across models is one thing: students matter more than systems. The opportunity we have here is rare, a chance to support an education marketplace that truly supports every child, not just the ones who fit in the box. But that is never going to happen if we stay in our silos. No single sector, organization, or political party can do this alone. The good news is we don't have to start from scratch. We have incredible people building solutions for decades, It's time we join them. I believe this moment demands all of us. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, and I'll go ahead and begin with the next introduction of our next witness. It is a great pleasure and privilege to introduce my friend, Mr. John Kirtley, from the great free state of Florida. He has a long history and has been a champion and advocate for kids that have unique education needs and making sure we're providing real opportunities to serve kids to reach their full potential. In fact, Florida has been on a journey to reach where we are today, which is one of the first states to adopt universal school choice. And he has been a large part of that progress. In fact, we are now not only one of the first states to have universal school choice, we're ranked #1 repeatedly in educational freedom, and in 4 years in a row now, ranked #1. And he will go into this and why he does this, what drives him, what has set him on this journey, but he has been a voice and an advocate for this in Florida. And I'm proud to say, since around 2000, when we were about a 60% graduation rate, we just announced this year we're at the highest level ever in graduation rates, which includes all of this not one-size-fits-all approach, but this unique needs-based educational approach to a 92% graduation rate. He has had a large part in developing policies that led to that success. He is currently the chairman of Step Up for Students, a nonprofit that administers over 500,000 K-12 scholarships for the state of Florida, including our tax credit scholarship. He serves as vice chairman of the American Federation for Children, a nonprofit that education choice advocates and serves education choice throughout the country. And he has served as a keystone force in creating the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, the basis of the Educational Choice for Children Act, which became law under President Trump's Working Family Tax Cut Act. He not only serves as a model in our state, but within his own family. His daughter is a teacher, following in that passion, and serves in a school right here in the DC area. John, thank you for being here today and serving as a witness. You may begin your introduction.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's great to speak with you today. I appreciate the invitation from Senator Moody. It says talk. There we go. Yeah. In the mid-1990s, the state of Florida began a journey that would change the very definition of public education in our state. Up until that time, the definition of public education in Florida was pretty simple. You raise taxpayer dollars to educate children, give every penny to the school districts. The school districts run all the schools in a fairly uniform manner, and then we assign kids by zip code. That was public education in Florida, and that remains the definition in many states today. But is that the best definition for today? Think of Miami-Dade School District. It has over 300,000 students. There are over 150 languages spoken in its classrooms. And if you drive from, say, Overtown to Coral Gables, you'll see tremendous economic diversity as well. Now, is a one-size-fits-all, top-down, assign kids by zip code system, is that going to be the best system that ensures success for every single student? Probably not. So fortunately, over the last 30 years, Florida has been moving towards a new definition of public education. Raise taxpayer dollars to educate children, but then empower families to direct those dollars to different providers and even different delivery methods that best suit their individual children's learning needs. Florida has fully embraced this new definition. We now have about 3 million kids, K-12, whose educations are paid for by the taxpayers. Now, over 50% do not attend their zoned district school. And in Miami-Dade, our largest district, that figure is over 70%. What is really encouraging to me is that the largest category of choice are district-run schools of choice, magnets, open enrollment. Our districts in Florida are responding to competition, and they are creating alternatives that families want to choose. We also have one of the most robust charter school markets, and we're also a leader in online education in Florida. Once again, Miami-Dade led the way. In 2008, Alberto Cavallo became superintendent, and he didn't complain about education choice. Rather, he said, quote, "Choice is a wave, and we're going to ride it." And ride it they did. Miami-Dade has created over 100 magnet schools in its district, and many of these schools are recognized as some of the best schools in the country. We also have over 150 charter schools in that district, and over 400 private schools serving kids on scholarships, many in low-income areas. Florida has made a full transition to this new definition of public education. Now, in our state, every single K-12 student can, if they want, get an education savings account every year from the taxpayers. They can use this account to pay for, yes, private school tuition, but also other approved educational products and services. Florida now has over 500,000 children on ESAs, and 150,000 of them do not attend a school full-time. Their parents are actually customizing their children's educations by buying educational products and services. As ESAs have grown in Florida, our state has become a hotbed of innovation, people creating alternatives to deliver educational services. Because parents can disaggregate the funds in the ESAs, meaning they don't have to just use it all in one place to buy tuition at one school, we're seeing hundreds of really innovative education providers being created in our state. Just one example, a marine biologist started a small business to educate 200 kids, mostly homeschoolers, out in the wild giving science lessons. This new definition is also creating opportunities for public school educators. Over the last 2 decades, we've seen hundreds of public school educators create their own schools, particularly in low-income areas. They can do this because even now, low-income parents have purchasing power that's provided to them from the scholarship programs. Another encouraging development, public school districts are recognizing that they have products and services that scholarship families want to buy. In the last year, 48 out of 67 school districts in Florida have either come on our online platform or are in the process of doing so in order to sell products and services to scholarship families. One of the most critical developments in Florida's journey to this new definition of public education was the creation of tax credit scholarships in 2001. The program works just like the federal program that was just passed, and it was critical in bringing choice to low-income families in Florida. As the program grew steadily over the years, it demonstrated how much families value this empowerment. When a lawsuit threatened to shut down the program in 2013, over 10,000 people traveled to our distant capital of Tallahassee to support the program. Thank you very much.
Senator Sanders to introduce his witness.
Thanks. I'm happy to introduce Marisol Garcia. Ms. Garcia is a middle school social studies teacher in the Isaac School District in Phoenix, Arizona. She comes from a family of educators and has taught for over 20 years. Ms. Garcia is also president of the Arizona Educational Association. As president, she works to ensure all children have access to a high-quality education and all teachers are paid a professional salary. Ms. Garcia, you may proceed with your testimony, and thanks very much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman Cassidy, Ranking Member Sanders, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify about Arizona's experience with the Education Savings Account vouchers as well as school choice. As Senator Sanders said, my name is Marisol Garcia. I'm a proud 8th grade social studies teacher in Phoenix for 20 years, and I currently serve as a president of the Arizona Education Association. In 2022, Arizona lawmakers overrode the will of the voters and enacted the first of the nation's universal voucher program, one of the Trump administration officials now cite as the national model. Today, I want to share with you the consequences of that decision and other Arizona's experiences as a cautionary tale. First, I want to start with a little brief history. For more than 3 decades, Arizona has been the center of efforts to weaken public education by breaking the connection between families and neighborhood schools. In 1994, our legislature adopted an open enrollment policy allowing students to attend public schools outside district boundaries. Combined with rapid charter expansion, this scattered students far beyond their public neighborhood schools and with no meaningful improvement in outcomes. Today, Arizona has hundreds of school options, but fewer children play on the same sports teams, wait for the same bus, or graduate from the same schools as their neighbors. Many of you come from close-knit towns, and I ask you to consider the role of your neighborhood schools in your development and making your community stronger, and what we lose when these disappear. In 2011, despite disappointing results from early choice policies, the lawmakers created Arizona's first voucher program, which was limited to a small group of students. It's important to note here that vouchers have never been popular in Arizona. Between 85 to 95% of our students attend public schools. Voters have consistently expressed strong support for public education. School privatization in our state has been driven by lawmakers and special interests, not by families. In 2018, Arizona parents organized a campaign against universal vouchers that passed by the voters, a 2-to-1 margin, only for lawmakers to force universal expansion into the law anyway. Today, our voucher program is bloated mess, costing 3 times more than it was projected. In my testimony today, I want to focus on 3 issues: student outcomes, waste and abuse, and student safety. In November, a RAND Corporation study found that 70% of Arizona vouchers recipients were already attending private schools or homeschool programs before they accepted this voucher. Students with disabilities who once made up a majority of the voucher recipients now only make up 20% of this program. These findings show that vouchers have not had meaningful expanded school choice or prioritized the greatest needs. What we have found is that the Arizona program has no income cap, and so disproportionately share of funding flows to wealthy families. For low-income families, vouchers often only offer the illusion of choice. Private school tuition in Phoenix has exceeded $20,000 a year, leaving families thousands of dollars short. Private schools can reject those students for any reason. Increasingly, school choice means that schools choose the students, not the other way around. Families of students with disabilities who enroll at private schools are often disappointed. In our public schools, we serve every single student. We are better equipped to provide special education, language services, and wraparound services. Rural students are also largely excluded from this voucher program. 90% of Arizona private schools are in urban areas, and limited federal investments in broadband, especially in tribal communities, makes online options unrealistic. Meanwhile, vouchers have become an excuse to avoid investing in our public schools. Last year, we won a lawsuit, an 8-year lawsuit, over chronic school underfunding, and the Republicans in our state have already said they will appeal that. Roughly $1 billion a year is diverted from public schools in our state to private hands, and districts have had to lay off educators and close schools. Arizona's superintendent of schools in 2024 announced the department would automatically approve $2,000 expenditures. The result was predictable. Reports show taxpayer dollars went to diamond rings, lingerie, and other items. In school districts, our biggest field trip, last field trip I took with my students, was a public bus ride to a local library. For voucher families, oftentimes we were paying for ski lift tickets and SeaWorld trips. Finally, Arizona has taken almost hands-off approach to oversight. Voucher-funded schools are not required to conduct background checks or be accredited and administer assessments. Bad faith operators almost provide no education and still receive tens of millions of dollars. I am deeply concerned we will hear more stories about students who are harmed by these schools. Every child deserves a great public school. In Arizona, our experiences show that vouchers are not the way to achieve that goal, and I am grateful for this time and invite any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one topic that I feel like I could be a witness as much as a questioner on, because I've been involved in it my whole life. And in the 1990s, I was living in Dayton, Ohio, working on economic development. We had the worst school district in the whole state. We were 16 and 13 out of 613. We tried to work with the Dayton Public School to change things. We couldn't change it. And then I get to the legislature. My very first bill was to create a charter school option. And then when I was Speaker of the House, we created the Ed Choice Scholarship, which started out focused on 4,000 students who were in the worst of the worst schools, and now we have 160,000 students in Ohio using their school choice option through the Ed Choice Scholarship. And I share these stories because many, many years later, now that people outside of the traditional system have had a chance to create amazing school opportunities, we have schools like the Dayton Early College Academy, which is an amazing school that serves students from the city of Dayton. Many of them are now on tracks to go to college and do other things. It's a great success story. And then we have the Greater Dayton School, which was just founded. An amazing facility, doing a wonderful job of educating students. And you know what the interesting thing about both of these schools are? There's huge waiting lists. There's waiting lists. If you give people the choice and you create an amazing opportunity for them, guess what happens? Parents decide that they want their kids to go to these great schools. It's not just in Dayton. And I visited recently the St. Mary's School in one of the lower income areas of Columbus. It serves children from, I think, 30 different zip codes, all of them low income. There's a waiting list there too. They have a health clinic. It's a place where students are getting a great opportunity in life. So the story I can tell you in our state is one of success. It doesn't mean it's a magic cure. Educating students is hard, particularly if they come from difficult backgrounds. There are wonderful public schools that I could also hold up and talk about the amazing things that they are doing too. Any educator, no matter where they come from, in a public school, a private school, charter school, it's fantastic. We love the ones that innovate. But we also know that there are pockets of great despair in education. And so that brings me to ask Cris Gulacy-Worrel, who I have known for a long time. You are mostly focused at your charter schools on children who have dropped out, who literally aren't in the system, that no one cares necessarily about them. It's no one's job to, but you've created this network of schools to try to help them. And would you tell us a little bit more about how your schools work at targeting that dropout population?
Thank you, Senator, for the question, if I may. Our average student is over 18 years of age, reading at a 4th or 5th grade reading level, and has attended 3 or more high schools before coming to us. So students that are outliers outside of the system. And I think when we're talking about public districts or any district or any school, we have to remind ourselves quickly before that our districts that are failing students were redlined and designed to do so and are functioning as a result of that historical redlining so many decades ago. And we're seeing school choice from the very beginning when a family can opt to buy a home that is $350,000 in a, quote, good school district versus a family that is kind of boxed out of that neighborhood school. And the neighborhood school they are given is one of failure and continued failure. So at Oakmont Education, we not only take students who are outside of the continuum of education and who have been failed time and time over, but we have district partnerships because our district partners realize the continuum of education. I've never met an educator who wants students to fail. I've never met an educator who says, I really want this kid not to graduate. But we are humans and our systems are taxed to a place where not every student can get what they need in the system they're in. So our school exists to make sure that there is a place where we meet students where they are. You are 21 years old or you're 20 years old and you have 4 credits. You're not going to go sit in a freshman classroom with other young people that are 14 and 15 years old. We're going to meet you where you are. You know, a third of our students are parents themselves. They have jobs. They have critical decisions to make. So we make a place that is fully available to them from start to finish, wrap around, therapists in each of our building, available people to navigate what's next for them in life. We start with that end in mind, and no 2 kids at Oakmont are the same.
So I know I'm running out of time here, so I just wanted to say this. The amazing thing about what school choice does and what Cris is talking about is that every child has a different background. They have a different need. Yes. And we can't expect public schools to meet all of those needs. They do a great job in many cases, but there are also unique pathways to serve the unique needs of every student. School choice allows that to happen. In this particular case, Mr. Chairman, these are students that the system forgot. And what Oakmont does is try to bring them back in and give them a chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Sanders.
Ms. Garcia, it is my understanding that 65% of voters in Arizona rejected a ballot initiative in 2018 to fund private school vouchers. That's a pretty overwhelming number. Am I correct in understanding that? Why did state lawmakers override the overwhelming will of the voters of Arizona?
They've done this several times, but I think it was clear to us that there was special interested in testing out some of these policies in Arizona. So special interest and politicians got involved and convinced each other to vote for it.
Let me ask you another question. My impression is that a lot of young people graduating college, for a variety of reasons, are not interested in becoming teachers. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to a superintendent of schools in a rural area in Vermont. Their starting salary was something like $38,000 a year. Are we going to attract the quality young people that we want, who are often graduating college themselves, deeply in debt, with the kind of salaries that we are now paying our teachers? Are we telling the world that we prize education when we are not paying teachers the salaries that they deserve?
Senator Sanders, this is one of the most heartbreaking things is that first-generation college graduates, this is far from a practical decision to enter a profession like education. My first year teaching 25 years ago, my salary was $36,000. The average new teacher salary in Arizona now, 20 years later, is $43,000. We have not shown investment. Most teachers across America do not have paid family leave, are unable to afford health care for anyone in their family. This is not an attractive profession. As a second-generation educator, I understand that the job meant I was going to work 80 hours a week. I understood the sacrifices that would go into it, but as a mother, I had no idea that I wouldn't be able to make ends meet or be able to afford a home going into such a treasured profession.
Ms. Garcia, in Arizona, which families primarily benefit from the voucher programs? Working-class families, low-income families?
Senator Sanders, no. The data shows that most of the students that are using this are from high-income areas and have already chosen, their families already made the decision that this was a choice that their family was going to make.
I am concerned that if we put more and more resources into private schools and fewer resources into public schools, we're going to end up with a two-tier system. People on top will probably get a good education. There will not be the resources for kids at the bottom. And you're going to bring more and more kids, a lot of them with trouble, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a fair concern?
I think Senator Sanders, this is a reality in Arizona right now. Public school parents, public school educators are doing everything we can. We're holding on as tight as we can to make things best for every student that walks through our doors. But right now, when you hear of students going on these fantastic voyages and resources, it is two different experiences for students.
Ms. Garcia, how has the rapid expansion of school privatization in Arizona, and Arizona is just one example, and there's states all over the country doing this, led to schools losing funding or closing? What impact has the funding of private schools had on public education in Arizona?
Sure. The ESA voucher program comes directly from our general fund, which means the same money that would go to paying educators, updating schools, resources is the same money that is being allocated to the ESA voucher program. There is no cap on it, and so it's almost like turning on a water faucet and letting it go. This year alone, it will be $800,000.
Say this year what?
This year, $800,000 out of the general fund. $800 million, I'm sorry.
$800 million?
Yes, out of our general fund.
Okay. Well, Ms. Garcia, thank you very much. Let me thank all of our panelists.
Thank you, Ranking Member. And I thank the chairman for holding this important hearing, and I am sincerely grateful I get to serve as the co-host of National School Choice Week with not only the chairman, but my friend Senator Tim Scott. And I am happy about that because my state, the free state of Florida, is the best in the union, I believe, for school choice. We have been ranked by both the American Legislative Exchange Council and the Heritage Foundation numerous years in a row as the best state for educational freedom. And as Mr. Kirtley will, I'm sure, remind us, this did not happen overnight. It took a lot of work and a lot of policy decisions, a lot of policy tweaking, but it was work from parents and advocates and state policymakers that transformed Florida from a state with poor performance across the board to a leader in education. Starting with Governor Jeb Bush's administration in 1999, Florida's graduation rate at that time was 60%. Governor Bush was a leader in educational choice. He really set the stage for much of what was done in Florida. Back then, only 0.4% of K through 12 students attended a public charter school. Fewer than 10 students in the whole state received a K through 12 scholarship. Fast forward to today, everything has changed. Close to 1 in 8 students attend a public charter school. Over 92% of our students are graduating on time. Over 450,000 students are receiving some form of a K through 12 scholarship, including the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. And a recent study by the Urban Institute found Florida tax credit recipients are more likely to graduate high school and enroll in a 4-year college. To be clear, Florida has much more progress to make in improving K through 12 educational outcomes, as do all of our states. But for our children, school choice has been an invaluable tool for success, no matter their background or means. And with that, I would like to ask a few questions of Mr. Kirtley. You mentioned that public school districts are offering classes and services to Florida tax credit scholarship recipients, despite some characterizations of public versus private. And I think this used to be thrown out for decades, but that has really changed and is really a mischaracterization of true school choice and educational alternatives. And we know that school choice programs can benefit public schools too and are part of the public school ecosystem. Can you offer testimony on why the public versus private description might be misguided or mischaracterization of today's models, especially Florida's model?
Sure. I think that the fact that the districts are coming on our, our online platform to offer classes and services to scholarship students is a perfect example of the blending of the definition and how we're getting away from the us versus them. This is an effort that's only a year old, and what the districts realized, actually thanks to the help of a guy named Keith Jacobs who works with us, a former public school educator, he went and told the districts, look, we have 150,000 kids on scholarship who are not enrolled full-time in a school, and they have parents who may not be comfortable teaching calculus or physics or chemistry. I mean, I could teach history. I couldn't teach those 3 things. And the districts will have classes that have, if they're in person, they may have space, or if they're online, they have unlimited space. So parents with kids on scholarship are interested in buying those classes and services. The districts also, have activities or clubs, robotics, the debate team, Latin club, that scholarship kids who aren't enrolled full-time in a school would be very eager to participate in, and the parents are willing to pay for those. So the districts can price these classes as they see fit on our platform, and the parents can purchase them. And I'm just so encouraged that in just a little over a year, 48 out of the 67 districts in Florida have recognized this as a great idea for them, and they're either on our platform already or they're in the process of doing so.
And I know you spent over 25 years working alongside Florida's educators and administrators and families and coming up with ideas and policies, and it really has led to much of Florida's success. And on trend, what we're seeing is experienced public school educators stepping up and founding new schools or creating new learning methods and models. So it's people that have had a hands-on experience with kids, seeing what works for them, what doesn't, probably more importantly. And this gives parents options that can better serve students whose needs aren't being met in the traditional settings. Can you just real quickly, because I'm running out of time, share an example of how school choice has empowered educators to lead and innovate in our state?
I'll give you one quick example. I could give you hundreds, but I'll give you one quick one. There's an educator in Tampa, my hometown, Dwayne Rayford, first to go to college, went to Florida A&M, was so proud about that. He named his school that he started after a 20-year year in education, in public education. He named his, he used the school colors of Florida A&M, used the mascot. His school's called Icon Prep. They started with maybe 70 kids, K through 8 in Tampa. They now have a K through 8 and a high school in Tampa. They were so successful. Teaching all low-income kids using the scholarships. They now have a K-8 school in Jacksonville, and they have one in Ohio, because Ohio also has a great scholarship program. This would never have happened without choice. This great educator would never have been an educational entrepreneur had not low-income parents had the opportunity and the purchasing power that school choice gives them.
Thank you so much, Senator Kim.
Thank you. Thank you to the three of you for coming on out and talking to us. I'm a father of a third grader and a fifth grader, so I live and breathe this. I think about it a lot, and I worry. Jersey's got great schools, but as I've been the senator across the entire state, I see huge discrepancies between different areas, different regions. And it's clear just the challenges that are there. So I'm trying to not just think about my own kids, but try to empathize with parents across my state as well as this country. One thing that I just keep coming back to on this front when I have this discussion, I'd be interested in hearing each of you talk about is that, on the public school side, they are prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, disability, religion, sexual orientation. And that's something that, just can be a bedrock for the community. Everyone knows, regardless, they can get that education. I guess I just want to ask the three of you, should every school that receives some type of public funding be held to that same account? Is this something that just needs to be translated across the board? So, Ms. Gulacy-Worrel, maybe we can start with you and work down.
So I'm going to answer it. I don't know if it'll be the way you want me to answer it.
I just want to hear your honest
So
thoughts.
I have not, I've dealt with, I have 3 children of my own. One is getting ready to graduate college, one in college studying to be a teacher, and one in high school. So I think about a lot of the different things that they needed, but in all my experiences in 24 years of parenting nearly, I have not encountered a private or a school that has turned away a student in my professional or personal career in over 25 years. However, I think that taking away, I think that's a red herring. I think that's a distraction from the real question is, are kids really safe in a district school that has been failing them, that has a reading proficiency of, say, 0%, like Baltimore? So no school should be discriminating on those bases. That's an obvious, that we shouldn't even have to say those things. I've never seen it happen. I've never experienced it. However, I think that the conversation needs to shift more to practical, things that we actually are seeing systemically, which is failure in reading proficiency, failure in math proficiency. Because when kids can read and families have agency, that void, when you take away agency from people, that void is filled with conflict.
Yeah.
So I think that putting the focus on what we know is happening, and trying to fix that, I think would be my answer. And
look, I appreciate that. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, I'd like to bring in Mr. Kirtley, if you could give me your thoughts.
Thank you for the question. And it raises a really interesting intersection between the emerging rights of LGBTQ citizens and the exercise of free religion under the U.S. Constitution. And just for clarification, we have 2,500 schools in Florida that serve kids on the private schools that serve kids on the scholarship program, and there are a handful that have these kinds of rules. And now some may say even a small number is too many, and I would agree with them. But the challenge is the Constitution guarantees that religious organizations, including religious schools, cannot be forced to operate in a way that is contrary to their sincerely held religious beliefs. For example, you can't force the Catholic Church to hire women priests. You can't force a Jewish school to hire Muslim teachers and
Yeah, but they also don't have to be forced to take public money, though. Right?
True, but the courts say that you cannot exclude religious organizations from participating in public programs, and that's why, for example, you cannot force a Catholic hospital serving Medicaid patients, a public program, you can't force that hospital to perform late-term abortions, and you cannot exclude them from serving Medicaid patients. So that's the dilemma. So what I would focus on is the fact that in Florida, you have LGBTQ kids who are using our scholarships to escape bullying in public schools. There was a study done by Gilson a few years ago, which is an advocacy group for LGBTQ students, and it showed that these students experience more bullying by a slight amount
Yeah.
in public schools than in religious schools. And if I could just say one more thing, one of the bravest people I've ever met in my life was a young man in Jacksonville who used our scholarship after he had attempted to take his own life because he was bullied in his assigned district school. He used our scholarship to attend a religious school that embraced him, and he was willing to talk publicly about that. One of the bravest people I've ever met.
Thanks for your thoughts. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I ask a question to all three. Could I just take a few extra seconds and have Ms. Garcia be able to respond to that? Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Garcia, because you have talked about it tangibly. It's not theoretical to you, and so I guess I just wanted to hear your thoughts about this.
Yes, Senator Kim, public schools welcome every single student. It does not matter. We do have documented evidence that students are being turned away, or if the school is not able to meet their special needs, that they are sent away, and we welcome them back into public schools. We welcome everybody. I think as an educator, as a veteran educator, the one thing that will ensure that students do well beyond our classroom is if they feel safe, if they feel accepted, more importantly, if they have the stability of a public school. So in public schools, and I believe that our taxpayer money should make sure that every student is accepted and that there's some sort of accountability and transparency that students are treated fairly.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Chairman. Thank you for letting me take just a little extra time, and I appreciate your thoughtful answers. And what I just tried to say, I was not asking the question in a gotcha type way. I'm sincerely trying to grapple with this, and Ms. Gulacy-Worrel, I agree with you. A fundamental question is about the failure of education. I mean, that is something that both sides of the aisle should recognize. We have failed these generations. I'm worried deeply about my kids' generation, not just about my kids, and we are not setting them up for success. Now, the question that we're trying to grapple with is, well, what comes next? How do we try to improve that? So, I just sort of throw that out there. I want to get to your question too, and I think that is the focus. But I do think thinking about how do we make sure that that is available for everyone and that we're not creating a situation, Ms. Garcia, that you mentioned, of widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots. So that's just something that, I hope we can continue to engage in on, have that kind of substantive, thoughtful conversation about education and not let our kids' education be caught up in just the partisan bickering and the argument that so often encapsulates, this building, unfortunately. And that's something that I commit as a parent to try to do. So thank you, Chairman, and hope to be able to continue this dialogue with you.
Senator Kim, what a great statement. What a great hopeful statement. And y'all gave very thoughtful testimony. I'm struck by what you said, ma'am, about how there's effective redlining if you do it by zip code. And you can call it what you want, but the fact that now people are choosing, and sir, when you said that the schools have become better because now there's competition, that's a good thing. And Ms. Garcia, I accept your concern that some kids will not be able to, particularly have their needs met because the school does not want to accept them. Now, I will flip that a little bit. Again, as I mentioned, my wife is got 4 public charter schools for children with dyslexia. And it may be that a school is not equipped for a child with dyslexia or a child who's autism. The parent could still elect to go there, but the parent should have the choice for the innovation that specifically meets her child's needs, sort of thing. So it's been, I agree, a very robust conversation. And you mentioned, again, the 18-year-old and 19-year-old with a child at home with a life experience far different than the freshman in college, freshman in high school, that you meet them where they are. The demographics, I'm guessing, but again, one of the criticisms of school choice is that you end up selecting based upon demographics, socioeconomic class, et cetera. But your school seems by definition almost to seek out folks who had come from a more difficult background. Is that true?
That is true, Chairman. And it is basically the outliers, kids in the margins, kids that have dropped out and are functionally nowhere. And every kid that drops out, which is every 26 seconds in America, 1.2 million kids last year.
Thank you.
Costs our country over $300,000 over their lifetime. So last year alone, that was almost $400 billion in dropouts.
So what's your graduation rate?
We don't have cohorts, but we have placement rates. So we want you to be graduated and placed, and in that placement, which is employed, enlisted, enrolled in college for a year or more, and that percentage with our students is 87%.
87%
is-
of people that you've
Yes.
selected for having already dropped out.
Already dropped out, those kids came to us, and 87% of our students that graduate with us are placed, and we track and follow and support them for a year, because nobody supports non-college bound youth in America. We only support college-bound youth.
Now, let me kids need jobs. There's nothing like a job to prepare somebody for life, right? And I'm struck, you spoke of the St. George School in Maine giving hands-on learning. So, again, what is your school doing differently? When I was in high school long ago, we had, I think, a technical class or something like that. But it sounds like what you're describing is something more than that, something more than just an hour a day, but rather something more intensive so that when the person graduates, they actually have a job.
Correct, Chairman. Fully immersed, work-based learning. We approach the work with a sector strategy approach, which is more of a Department of Labor. We go into the communities, into the regions, and speak with our employer partners and say, there's a disconnect between what education does and what employers want. And we bridge that disconnect, and we go to the employers and we say, what does it look like for an entry-level
Get
person?
that. So how do you get the young person to agree to pursue that path?
It's you come to an Oakmont school, you are here, because everybody should be doing career tech. My two sons that are college-bound should have been doing career tech. My youngest child is doing career tech. Everybody should be doing career tech. Long gone are the days of, you did career tech, you're not going to college. Career tech is preparing our students and young people for the real world. And what better place to potentially fail at something and not like it than I want to do construction. I'm out welding and it's cold. I don't like it. Guess what? I can fail freely because it's not costing me anything. I'm at a free public charter school. I can fail and learn these things. And so our students are
They
seeing...
hold you on that because
Yeah.
even though I'm gonna give myself more time, I'm running out of time. Sir, tell me, again, one of the problems that Ms. Garcia points out, that there's evidence are some schools which don't accept those with disabilities. But your scholarship programs, I gather, work for folks who have disabilities or unique learning needs. Can you describe that?
Yes, absolutely.
Is your button on?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a program in Florida that is specifically designed for students, we call them students with unique abilities. And we have about 150,000 children on that program alone. And they both attend school, some of them attend school full-time, some of them attend school part-time, and some are homeschooled. And if you talk to the parents who use these programs, they will tell you that they've been a lifesaver for their children because their children are unique and they have to find a different environment. And when we say that the public schools have to take every child with a disability, but not every single public school has to take every single kid with every single disability. So giving the parent the flexibility, not just to find a different school, but to customize their education with the education savings account to a great degree really is a lifesaver for them.
Got it. I'll do one more thing before turning over to Senator Hickenlooper. Can I put that up? I feel like Senator Sanders misrepresented our Educational Choice for Children's Act. And this is a $1,700 federal tax credit that goes to scholarship granting organizations for various learning experiences, giving the parent the power to choose. It does not take it away from public education. Rather, this is something where you can assign a portion of your tax, that which you have to pay, to go to this scholarship granting organization. And so, again, just to say, we're not trying to supplant funding for public education. We're trying to supplement funding for education. Now, Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here. I was, for whatever reason, I've been involved in education my whole life. I had a bad freshman year in college, dropped out, and ended up at an alternative school on the northernmost coast of Maine, almost in Canada. that was turning a old sardine factory into a what they called back then a free school, but an alternative school. And I just stayed involved when I was in business, and then as mayor of Denver, I visited. I said during the campaign I would visit every school in Denver if I got elected. And later, the person who suggested that to me was volunteering on the staff, a guy named Michael Bennett. And later he would say, if Hickenlooper had better staffing, someone would have told him there were 161 schools in Denver. So my first 4 years as mayor of Denver, I went to a school every week and spent 2 hours, some of the most valuable time of all the investments I've made of time in public service. And I think that we need an all of the above solution here. And to me, one of the most powerful, when I was governor, a guy came in and told me that 65% of our kids, no matter what we do, are not going to get a four-year degree. We try the best we can. We've been doing this for 50 years, and we are failing. And these kids, and I, having gone to all these 160 schools, I think it was about 175 by the time I got through, because I went to Catholic schools and every school. You saw these kids in high school, in 10th grade, and 11th grade, 12th grade, bored silly, sitting there taking classes that they're never going to need. It's not going to get them a leg up in their lives. This guy, Noel Ginsburg, came in and said 65% of the kids are never going to get a degree, and you're failing them. And he and I put together, and we took 50 civic leaders, so superintendents of some of the largest school districts, CEOs from many of the largest corporations, the head of higher education for the state, a bunch of superintendents of schools. We took 50 people for a full week in Switzerland to see what their apprenticeship model looks like, and how would we think about taking something so European and translating it into what became in Colorado career-wise. And it's the only thing in 8 years as mayor, 8 years as governor, where I spent a whole week on one thing. I never left that group. We spent every day going to see exactly how this works. And it's breathtaking to see what can be done of letting, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, when they're in 10th grade, they're actually going out and working 2 days a week. Then they work 3 days a week the next year, and then 4 days a week. And businesses love it. And I think this is something that this country it's like pushing a boulder over a mountain, but there's real value there. So let me start with Ms. Gulacy-Worrel. In your testimony, you talked about career technical education model at Oakmont. How do you recruit your students and work with their families to kind of navigate this career technical education model? And how are the students then connected with employers for training and placement?
Thank you, Senator. We typically don't need to recruit. We have a lot of partners in districts. We have a lot of word of mouth and a lot of relationships with the justice systems in the different areas that we are in. And our students are immersed fully. So a week in academics, a week flipping over a week into work-based actual learning. So building homes with Habitat and getting buy-in for the career tech is very easy. And our career tech students, by and large, are attending school significantly more often and regularly without absences because they feel like they have a purpose, and they are meeting these employers, and they feel for the first time, after being told what a loser you are, how bad you are, finally being told, I'm not really good at math, but I can really read this tape measure. Or like one of my colleagues, Dr. Farley, always says, like, I don't know math, but I can pour a footer. Well, there's all kinds of moments of math and ELA and all of these real moments. And even my almost 16-year-old son says, I'm so bored. There's nothing relevant. And that's the number one reason kids drop out of school, is their perceived lack of relevance. So we just make sure to expose kids to the reality of what the world is that our students have already been living. So career tech is a game changer. Everybody should be doing it. We should be doing it earlier, regardless of where kids are going, college, military, or anywhere else.
And let me ask one last question, both from you, Ms. Gulacy-Worrel, and Ms. Garcia. What do you think schools, including public schools, what can they do to more thoroughly incorporate work-based learning and the opportunities like youth apprenticeship? What could we be doing more?
I can say in Arizona, we have a very expansive career technical education program. Much of what she's speaking of is happening in public schools. This has already been replicated. In fact, the fact that the students have choices from being able to learn how to be a preschool teacher, all the way how to fix an engine, to hair cutting, to everything. All this amazing experience is great for students. I think in our state, and I think nationally, we have to talk about investing in these programs and the same flexibility that is being offered to outside programs and companies. We don't have that same luxury, unfortunately. The levels of accountability for us is a little bit higher. But I can say that talking to 10th graders and 8th graders, they love my class. They're enjoying and having a great time. And I think the more that we have qualified educators in these situations that are consistent and stay with these community schools, the better rates of return that we're able to see there.
Great, I agree. You want to add anything?
I just think that we need to also, when we're doing career technical education, again, we're a network of public charter schools, but I think that it can be done and should be done in all types of environments, not just like public traditionals or public charters. But I think that we also need to nod to the experts in the field. So when we are having these career technical education like courses, we need to have experts of their craft. My father was an electrician. I don't need a 25-year-old person who just went to go to school to be a teacher, which my son is doing, to come and teach electrical trades, because they're not going to be able to do that. So I just think that making sure that we are being true to what it is instead of trying to make it what we would want it to be if it were a perfect situation. I just think there's a lot to learn from Germany and Switzerland and their apprenticeship models and placement. So getting kids into the jobs, not just like learning a skill and doing it in a classroom or with 3D printers, but in the field. If you're in healthcare, you should be in a facility. You should be there hearing sounds, having smells, having the experiences to see if you can really hack it. Because unfortunately, a lot of our students don't qualify to go to their traditional district career tech centers because they don't have the grades, they don't have the attendance, they don't have the transportation, and those often have wait lists. So making it more accessible to all, I think, is really, really important.
Great, I appreciate it. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it. I'll yield back the floor to my fellow senator from the South.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, thanks for being here. One of the reasons I ran for this position is I've been in education all my life. And I wish we didn't have to have this talk about the CHOOSE Act, school choice. Now, we passed it in my state of Alabama, and we'll see how that works. I wish that we had a plan in our country where no child is left behind. And we teach them knowledge, not ideology, okay, through the public system. Again, 35 years of coaching. I went into high schools in every state except for Alaska. And we have some great public schools in this country. We have some great teachers. We have excellent administrators. Here's the problem I saw. It turned into tenure, okay? You can't fire anybody. If I was in coaching and I had somebody that couldn't coach and I couldn't fire them, I'm gonna get my ass fired, okay, at the end of the day. Same thing with teaching. If we're not teaching knowledge in these schools, we got huge problems. And that's not what's happening in a lot of our schools. We got way too many administrators in our country. We have tripled the amount of administrators in this country as compared to teachers. Everybody wants to be an administrator, where I guess they want to plan something, they want to be over something. And that's put us in a tailspin. So what I'm saying is we forced our hand into this school choice. It's been forced because we've wasted trillions of dollars. And I've worked with thousands of kids that come in with 4-point GPAs, and they couldn't read and write. They were passed along. Just get on, we don't want you anymore. You're a good athlete, so let somebody else do it. I spent a lot of my own money teaching kids to read. Had a kid tell me one time after we taught him to read, what's the most exciting thing that happened to you? He said, I can read a menu now. I don't have to go in and order a hamburger. It's embarrassing. If I was a teacher in this country and I saw what was happening to our kids in the public system, we should have a run on these buildings up here. So, that being said, we got a lot of work to do. I'm getting ready to hopefully be governor of Alabama. We're fixing to change everything in education. We need to change our education system, K through 12, higher education. We need to get back to teaching and stop this ideology, get away from tenure, fire the bad people that don't do their job, and get back to doing what's right in this country and help our kids. See, we're stealing from the American taxpayers in a lot of ways, but this is one of them. They're losing their money because they're not getting their money's worth. So, Ms. Worley, if you have school choice, and I'm in Alabama, you tell me how I'm on transition from school choice to workforce development. How do I do that? I mean, how does that work? How does school choice and how do we understand the significance of making that transition from school choice area?
Well, I think, Senator, you have an incredible opportunity in Alabama to do it right from the beginning with all of the options that are a part of the school choice continuum. If you go into them, it doesn't just have to be schools that are for dropout students, should have career technical education and work-based learning opportunities. And going to the employers in those regions where you have schools, which is everywhere, is, I think, the first way to start that and to see what the high demand careers are coming in Alabama.
So what grade area would you start transforming from school choice to workforce development? Would you wait till the 12th grade? Would you start in the 9th? Would you start in the 6th? How would you do that?
If I had a magic wand and we could do it, I believe early exposure, a passport of skills, a way that kids can start to learn what it looks like, what it feels like, what they want to explore, and then build on that passport of skills and understanding early in elementary school through middle school and make it more tangible and weave it into as they go into high school. Shouldn't be the first time in a junior year that they step foot in a major employer. It just shouldn't be.
Yeah. Here's the way I look at it. You got to teach these kids to read and write, okay? If you don't read and write before the 3rd grade, you about had it, okay? You can do it, but it's awful, really, really hard. But we've got to teach reading and writing early. Math and science and history will come if they can read. You can't do math and history and science if you can't read. And so that's one of the things I plan on doing. And so hopefully, but we're going to do workforce development. We're going the K through 12 to me is just so obsolete. It really is. It's in the Stone Ages. There's a lot of kids that don't need to go 12 years. You know, they need to go out and workforce and learn and be an example. Mr. Kirtley, I lived 10 years at Coral Gable. Coached 10 years at University of Miami from 1985 to 95. Won a lot of games, but I saw a city transform. There's not a more diverse city in this country than Dade and Broward County. It's just not. And I saw our education get better because a lot of these kids come in, they can't speak English. They come from all these third world countries, but they did a great job doing it. How did they do that?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As I mentioned earlier in my testimony, Miami-Dade is the freest market for K-12 education in this country. Every student in Florida, but certainly in Miami-Dade, has the ability, if they want, to have an education savings account to use for tuition to a private school or to buy education services and products to customize their education. We have 150 charter schools. We have 400 private schools that kids can attend, and low-income kids do attend on our scholarships. But most importantly, as I said earlier, the public district in Miami-Dade did not shy away from competition. They didn't complain, not once. When the superintendent came in 2008, when choice was just coming to the fore, he said, I'm not afraid of this. We're going to create options that families want, and they did so. They have over 100 magnet schools in Miami-Dade, and I would add, sir, they have amazing technical education programs, automotive technology, medical technology, where kids, they'll have 3 levels. Kids can go right into nursing, they can go to school in nursing, or they can go on to college and then go to med school. But they all go to the same public high school together. It's a beautiful thing. Competition works.
Yeah, I want to pass this on to my fellow senator. I want to ask one more question. In my state of Alabama and other states, with all the people coming here from other countries, our schools are being overrun. we don't have enough people to teach, the different languages that are coming in. You have that because you have people that have come from other countries that have grown up in the system and have been educated speaking, different languages from Latin America, Central America, and those things. How do we do it now? How does people that don't have that number of people that can speak the language of these young kids coming, how do we do that? I mean, how do we transition? Because we put them in a room and just turn on a video? I mean, tell me how that works.
I'm not an expert, Senator, I'm not an expert in that area, but I would defer to the people in Miami-Dade who've been doing it incredibly well for 30 years. As I said earlier, over 150 languages are spoken in the Miami-Dade public schools.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not fluent in every single 150 languages.
But they can communicate.
But they're good at working with ESOL students and getting them mainstreamed. And so I would highly recommend talking with the people in Miami-Dade about that.
Ms. Garcia, I saw you shaking your hand. Could you answer that question for me?
Well, in the state of Arizona, what we've seen over the last few years is that a lot of teachers have been brought in on visas to be able to teach students with different languages. We also have first generation and second generation teachers who are bilingual and can speak 2 languages and can help students not only flourish in their original language, but also learn English so that they are bilingual and able to have 2 languages academically.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Marshall.
Coach, thank you so much, and welcome to our witnesses today. I'm happy to be here to celebrate School Choice Week. I think Coach will appreciate this story. My college track coach told me the first day of track practice, everyone's bragging how great of athletes they were in high school, and he said, "Don't tell me, show me." And I think the Republican Party has shown our support for this school choice. And the Working Family Tax Cuts bill, we have a $1,700 tax credit for scholarships for school choice. We've increased the flexibility with the 529 education funds as well. Those are two examples of Republicans doing what we said we were going to do, putting our money where our mouth is as well. And Coach, I can't agree with more than your philosophy of coaching and teaching. You would think we were raised by the same parents, that we were brothers in so many ways. And I assume this, but I was educated in a public school system. My wife, a public school system. Our kids went to a public school system. They went to public universities, and we were well prepared. And I kind of drug my feet on school choice. I was concerned, how will school choice impact urban America, the inner city? How is it going to impact rural America as well? But I'm afraid our public school system has let us down. The education that my youngest child got versus my old changed. The same school system, they went to the same grade school, the same middle school, the same high school, but it just changed. And I can't say enough thank you to the dedicated teachers and coaches in public school and the teachers and coaches that my kids had. I mean, these are A++ people. I got to deliver their babies. I got to get to know them, coach their kids in Little League. They coached my kids in Little League and then on through varsity sports. So I want the public school system to survive. And Coach, I look forward to you setting an example in Alabama that other states can follow as you break down those barriers, as we try to figure out, I think in middle school at least that kids should being shown there's great value in the tech skills, that the jobs we have in Kansas right now that are paying more than a 4-year degree job would, whether it's in plumbing or an electrician and all those types of things. Welding, we have the world champion welder from Southeast Kansas. So I'm going to challenge Coach on that one as well. World champion welder as well. But here we are, and school choice is upon us, and we need it. They need the competition. So, Ms. Gulacy-Worrel, I guess my first question, I'm still really worried about rural America, that if some of these students are doing school choice, how do the public schools survive? And I'm looking for that win-win opportunity.
Senator, thank you for the question. I think that if we want to really rise to the occasion that we're speaking of, and we want world-class opportunities for our American students, including work-based learning, career technical education for our rural students, as well as for our students in our urban cores, we have to address funding and making sure that the funding is available for our rural districts to potentially come together, form consortiums to offer the world-class career technical education opportunities that they have. Just because a choice comes into a rural community doesn't mean that the rural schools close. It should be a part of that continuum. And if we want to make sure that the opportunities are even for all students, we really do need to evaluate and make sure that the funding opportunities are fair and equal to support students in rural America. Because if you take a school and say, this school's going to offer all career tech, this school's not, you could have all students want to go to the other school with the career tech, but there needs to be a continuum of cooperation when you're bringing something new into those communities. We work in rural communities as well as urban communities, and we've not seen a district shut down as a result of that.
Mr. Kirtley, would you add anything and maybe address it more from the inner city area, if that's some of your expertise? I mean, how would you expect the public school system to respond to the competition from school choice?
Well, I have personal experience, which I'm happy to talk about. It was a long time ago, but I graduated from Fort Lauderdale High School, class of '81. It was an inner city high school, great mix of kids, and I had a great education there. But what I didn't realize was a lot of my teammates didn't graduate. They actually had what are called certificates of completion when they walked across the graduation stage, not a diploma. And when Governor Bush, Jeb Bush, instituted his reforms, when he was elected governor in '99, my high school was labeled an F, a failure. But that wasn't the end of the story. Because of the competition, because of the dedication of the public educators in Broward County, they turned Fort Lauderdale High School into a school of choice. It's now a magnet school. It's a pre-law magnet. And they have a national champion debate team, and they're now an A school, and I'm happy to say they still play football too.
Yeah, it's always the people that make the difference. So my time's expired. Again, thank you. Education is the backbone of America. Education is what allows us all to achieve our American dream. I'm a first-generation college student and got to live my American dream out because of the great teachers and coaches and family that I had helped me with a very generous public education. And we want, share that same goal. We want every student, every child in America to have a great education. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. We're going to wrap this up, but I want to give each one of you 1 to 2 minutes. 21st century, if we're going to make it to the 22nd century and make our kids better, what's your thought? Let's start with you, Ms. Garcia.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Senator Tuberville, for the question. I like to think about the future and think of each one of my students who, and what that could look like, what ensured a lot of their success. I have students all over the world. Many of them have joined the military, they are now, some of them are dentists, some of them are parents buying homes. And one of the things that I think helped them, and I think helps every student, is the ability for us to connect with them, see where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. I too was a softball coach for many, many years in middle school, so a little bit different experience, girls softball in 8th grade. But what I found very quickly there is each one of my students needed direct time with and support to make sure that they were hitting the goals that they needed. Unfortunately, my experience in public schools over the last 20 years has shown my class size grow larger and larger and larger. My first year I had about maybe 26 students per class period. Now it's close to 32 and 34, which means I'm teaching 160 8th graders every day. So what I would love to see is an innovative way and direct tax money going to ensure lower class sizes, highly qualified educators, ensuring that we have tutors to meet the needs of every student, ensuring that kids had before school and after school programs, qualified librarians, nurses, that we had services available to meet the needs of all of our students. And I believe there is a path to get there as long as parents, educators, as well as policymakers are all in the same room together.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Senator. I guess I would say I hope that other states follow the journey that we took over the last 30 years. I mentioned earlier that 30 years ago, we had a very simple definition of public education. Every dollar went to the districts, Districts ran all the schools, assigned kids by zip code. Worked great for me, works great for most kids, doesn't work great for every kid. Now in Florida, we have a different definition. Parents can direct the dollars to different providers and different delivery methods. We've gone from 35th out of 38 states on the NAEP back in 1998 to 2019, we were in the top 5. Graduation rates have gone from 50% overall, and much less for minority kids, to over 90%. That's an incredible change. And choice wasn't the only reason why that happened, but choice was the catalyst that made other reform elements work better and faster. And I just hope that people in other states will challenge their definitions of public education. What is it? Is it really the old definition? Try something new, try something innovative, push the power to families, and good things will happen.
Thank you. I'm with you. Choice should make public schools compete and get better. Ms. Worrell.
Senator, thank you. I would just really urge us to not be distracted by conversations that I think take the focus away from students and achievement and literacy. We know that if a kid can't read by 4th grade, they're 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. We have all the things we need, and I feel like if we lean more into that and listen to parents, listen to students, and be responsive, and not be responsive to the systems, but be responsive to the people that we're tasked in giving a world-class education to, which are students. A lot of times we don't even talk to students or the young people that this is directly impacting on what their experiences are like. So I think that as we move forward, we're going to have to all come together and realize that it's a continuum and not siloed, that all of us are necessary for all students to be able to succeed. And when we start to silo off into our adult little corners of the space, kids suffer. And adults may not seem like they're suffering, but eventually we pay the price for failing students. And we're seeing that right now, and we're going to continue to see it unless we change what we're doing. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank all of you for being here. We have Foreign Relations Committee hearings today. We have Ag Committee. We have everything going on. There's nothing more important than what we did here today. Nothing. Because if we don't do that, we won't survive as a country because we're going to cheat our kids. And the kids are the future. You know, they're our number one commodity. So for any senator wishing to ask additional questions for the record will be due today at 5 p.m., Wednesday, February 11th. Again, thanks for everybody being here today. And hopefully, you know, this will be shown on media and people will get something out of this. But we have to do something different. What we've been doing is not working. And I'm for anything, as long as kids can learn, make our country stronger. So thank all of you for being here. Thank you. God bless you.